Hey everybody, I'm Katie Arroyo.
And I'm Laura Manasowicz.
And this is Pinky Promise. A podcast about growing up. It was. I felt a drum roll building that was only in my head.
You were into it today. That's fine. Our guest today is a comedian, actor, writer, and singer originally from Chicago, currently in LA. Her comedy credits include the Hollywood Improv, the Laugh Factory Long Beach, and Dynasty Typewriter. She's performed at the Laugh Riot Girl Comedy Festival, Second City Diversity and Comedy Festival, Mutiny Radio Comedy Festival, Tucson Comedy Arts Festival, and 2 appearances at Women in Comedy Festival in Boston. Would have been 3, but COVID. And she has appeared in commercials for State Farm and Myers, and she also has performed comedy in backyards and at a fish fry for balance. What I'm saying is she knows what she's talking about. Our guest today is Wynter Spears. Welcome, Wynter.
Thank you. Hi, Katie. Hi, Laura.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. You know, the only thing I really put on makeup for these days are like Zoom, and not even all Zoom meetings, just Zoom meetings that I have to be on camera for.
Yes.
Because if I don't have to be on camera, nope.
No.
I mean, no. I'm proving, I thought that I was like, yeah, only the ones I have to be on camera for, I'll put makeup on. And then we did this one, and I started to put makeup on, and my boyfriend said, hey, did you leave a slice of bread down on the kitchen counter? Because the cat is licking it. And I was like, no! Now he eats bread, and it ran downstairs and forgot about makeup. So I think that streak is over.
Right there is why I don't have a pet. I couldn't concentrate.
That's a lot.
No, I'm learning that I do put it on and it looks like I don't have any on, which is ideal for me. Because when I just got
the natural look.
I just got headshots and they put all the makeup on so that on the camera you look like you don't really have a ton on. And then at my face, I was like, is my face taller? I feel like there's 4 inches of foundation on my face.
You're like, is my head bigger? Will sunglasses still fit?
Exactly right.
But that's okay because people with big heads do very well in television. I'm just saying, it's so true. It's so true.
Well,
that's a fun fact.
I'll get head implants.
Fun fact, people with huge heads do very well in television. They do.
Do you think it's because the body looks small compared to the big head? Like what?
Well, I don't know what it is, but like, and I love Conan, but Conan has, like, I've been to the Conan show. He has a very large head, but he also has a very long, tall body. So it goes with it. But it works on Jay Leno, also very big head, not as tall as Conan, but huge. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's some kind of math to it, but I'm like, oh, people with big heads tend to do that.
And like even like the ingenue girl ladies often
they have like big, like Giada.
Jessica Chastain, who I think is beautiful. She has a very strong face, very, very strong. Viola Davis has a very strong face. Her face is a very strong presence. I'm just saying.
I remember a billion years ago, there was like when Elizabeth Hurley was the shit. I mean, I'm not saying she's not still, but when she was more prevalently the shit.
She was the shit out like front.
An article. That's right. There was an article that was like, she's the most beautiful because her face is the most symmetrical.
So symmetrical. Yeah, there's something about symmetry.
And that has sent me down a spiral. I don't think I'll ever come off
Okay,
of,
but
because you think your face is not symmetrical?
I won't even do the math.
It's a trap. They're always trying. That's how they sell us makeup and cream. They're always trying to make us feel bad about ourselves. That's a trap. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah, they're like, one of your eyeballs is bigger than the other. Buy this lotion.
Right, exactly.
The tweets that are like, the best skincare is water. Save your money. I'm like, I do need to hear that, but I also put myself on a strict, like, you can buy all the things, but they have to be under $10 a bottle.
Right. There you go. There you go. You're like, don't spend all your money. There's no reason.
No, because you're going to want more dumb shit.
Right.
In a moment.
I'll spend
it. Water and moisturize. That's all you can do. Drink water and moisturize.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that because I was just reading that Justine Bateman just came out with a book about how so many women, particularly in Hollywood, have succumbed to the idea of plastic surgery. I think it's called one square foot of skin or one square foot or something like that. But it's all about like the beauty myth and how plastic surgery is a trap and it's never going to be what you want it to be. It's never going to make you look the way you, and like, it's all about aging and all that. It looks really interesting. I think I'm going to read it.
Yeah. I like it because I like the idea that it's like, okay, we're starting to not the people necessarily doing it, but the people looking at the other people are beginning to be like, it's clear that there's work done. Now, the impressive part is that it's good work. It's work that makes you look like you haven't had it done, but I know it's been done, versus like some of the more like the new. Like,
and then I feel like there's always a tipping point. Like there's a point where people look amazing, and then they've gone too far.
They went,
you couldn't stop.
Yeah,
they're too far.
You gave your
you don't
secret
know.
away.
Well, you keep you keep like quote unquote improving. So then you're like, well, if that looks better, a little more might look better. And then no one wants to accept that we've reached like the peak of our face. So we're like, there's got to be I might be able to look a little bit better. And then you realize you're on the downslope and you're like, fuck. Like you don't realize you're at the top until you go too far.
That's right.
Maria Bamford has a great joke that she tells about it. And because she said, I think it was either her agent or her manager who said that she might want to look into Botox. And she said, oh, but I'm still using my face. So it's such a great joke. It's such a great bit about it. She's like, oh, but I'm still using my face.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I still need that. Katie, the peak of my face, I would like to be one of your memoirs.
It'll be a chapter about beauty, beauty standards. But I think I just saw an influencer who she got too much Botox. It's like happening right now. So apparently you can lift your eyebrows with Botox, which I didn't know. And which I was like, that's a whole new world of things that I didn't know I needed to worry about. And so she lifted, but one eyebrow was lifted too much. So she went back and she got a little bit more in the other eye. And instead of lifting the brow, it drooped her eye. So her eye...
They hit a nerve?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
So her eye is completely drooped, and it's been like that. And the other eye, to compensate for this eye drooping, is open too much. So you can see the whites of her eye, like on the one eye, and the other one is drooped. And there's absolutely nothing that she can do.
Will it correct
after the Botox fades? So like the amount of, think about how long Botox lasts, and that's what her eye is going to do. Isn't that wild?
Is that worth it? Is that worth it?
She did like I did like a deep dive into this woman because I did love how open she was about it. Like she was just she recorded herself and she was like, this is embarrassing and whatever. I think it's in the long run, it'll be like I don't even know how long Botox lasts for, but it'll be like a couple months of her looking like hating how she looks or whatever. But think of the followers she's getting right now because they put it on TMZ, and I'm sure that's like how it showed up in my newsfeed or whatever.
Wow, and, that's crazy. But all the stories that I hear about people having bad experiences with plastic surgery, I'm like, oh, elective surgery where maybe something horrible happened that you can't correct.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't even sound worth it to me. I'm like, because Kathy Griffin did a whole thing about how she got, she was getting lipo and she almost died. Yeah. Because she got an infection. It was it was really bad. And I was like, was that worth it? Yeah. That seems like a no.
It sounds horrible. I am interested in armpit Botox for sweating because I'm anxious and always sweaty.
You know what's funny? I sweat all the time. I've been sweating all my life. My mother tells stories about how when I was a baby, she used to have to get up in the middle of the night and change my little t-shirt because my t-shirt would be wet. Poor baby. Just sweat all night long. Poor baby. So I've always been a sweater. Yeah. But it's never like, it's one of those things that I don't really think about it as much as I think maybe I should, or maybe I should be, because a lot of times when I'm doing comedy, I'm wearing like a jacket or something. Right. I'm like, so if I'm sweating, who's gonna know? Yeah.
I went from like, I'm in my 30s. So I want to say in my 20s, I went from being like in my 20s and not wanting to wear a tank top because I didn't like how my underarms looked. Even if they were perfectly like presentable, I'd be like, well, I can't wear a tank top to the gym where I'm going to do a pull-up. To now, I will be at the gym and I'm like, oh my God, you didn't shave your armpits for like 4 or 5 days. Like, and I realize it in the gym and I'm like, oh, well.
You're like, well, nothing to do about it now. Nothing to do about it now.
Look at me still being a human.
I'm out here just trying to live. I'm just trying to live, people.
I'm like, it's still arm day.
Sweat is so wild because it's like, Yeah, it says your body's working. It's doing the thing that all the
thing it's
bodies
supposed to
do.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're like, ashamed. But you know,
exactly.
But it
Whatever.
definitely, I'm sweaty too. I'm always running hot. Like, it's a huge joke. Just this morning, I told my boyfriend, I'm like, why is this room so hot? And he's like, it's not hot. It's you. And I'm like, no, it's hot.
No, I feel you. I'm 100% running hot most of the time.
But now I'm just like, yeah, I'm like Teen Wolf. I run hot. Like, what do you want?
well, let's start this show, huh?
Right. I think we've already started.
Our
guys.
new format is 10 minutes. This is a new format, Laura. 10 minutes of complaining about being a woman. And then we start the show.
I like it.
There you go.
All right, second start. Here we go.
And begin.
So Wynter's going to tell us her tale today of how sort of like the middle school and high school years helped shape your adult life as an artist. Is that that's how we would say that?
Yeah.
All right. And that's school in the Chicago area, right? That's
yes, exactly. So I grew up, and when I say grew up, probably like from the age of 10 to 19, I lived in Bolingbrook, Illinois, which is about 45 minutes outside of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in middle school was sort of when I was like when I was growing up, I did dance classes. I was a baton twirler. I did all of those things. And then when I got to middle school, like sort of the big culmination of like my 8th grade year is I got to play Dolly Levi in our production of Hello, Dolly, which is insane. Because I was sure I had 2 friends, Debbie and Susie Shepard, twins. They're amazing. But their dad was like a voice teacher and they took voice lessons and all these things. And I was like, oh, clearly Debbie's going to be Dolly and I will be her sidekick.
I'll be Dolly's sassy friend.
Right. I'll be Dolly's fancy friend. Right. Whose name I can't even remember now. But anyway, cut to the cast list goes up. I get cast as Dolly. I was like, what is happening? So it was literally one of the great experiences of like junior high. And it was amazing. Like everybody came to the show. To this day, like people in my hometown know about it. Like it's one of those weird things that I was like, people still remember that. That was so many years ago. Anyway, and it's something that my best friend periodically references because she and I hadn't become friends yet, but she was one of the people in the show. So she's like, that's when I knew who you were, but we didn't really get to be friends, I think, until I was in 10th grade and she was in 9th grade. But the reason I say that this was all prep for life and being an artist is because I went from star of the show, junior high, 8th grade, coming in like 9th grade thinking I'm all that. Coming in hot. Never had a decent role. And when I was in high school, I played what did I play? Oh, this is great. So the first role I was ever offered was the role of a maid in some show I can't remember. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm one of how many Black people in this school, and you think I should play the maid? I was like, Was it a predominantly white school? I was like, and then this is what, of course she was. And then I was like, if I tell her no, this means I'm going to get crappy roles if I get any roles for the rest of my high school career. I knew that going in. And even then I was like, nope. So a lot of times I say Wynter Spears has been turning down roles since 9th grade.
Wait, so you know what's crazy though? I don't think I would recognize that you can say no. Like, I think I would have been like, oh, they cast me as the turd, so I'm the turd. Like, I wouldn't even think that there was an option of like, well, you don't have to do it. I'd be like, I'm the turd.
I thought long and hard about it because when I got cast, I thought long and hard about it, and I was like, if I don't, because I think you're savvy enough when you're 13 to know how things work.
But I don't think I think I would have been like, that's fucked up. I'm Dolly. But then I don't think my self-confidence is far, like I would know that it was fucked up, but I wouldn't even think that you're allowed to say no. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'd be like, no, I tried out. I agreed to do it. And then
and that's the thing. The thing is I loved theater so much, and I knew that those were the people that I wanted to be around. Yeah. But that being said, like I was so the whole thing just left such a bad taste in my mouth, and I was so hurt by it that I was like, if I tell her no, I'm going to get crappy roles. I know for the rest of the time that I'm in high school. Yeah. And I was like, are you prepared for that? And I was like, it's fine. I was like, it is what it is. I can't go into it pretending I'm excited about it when I'm not.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell her no, and whatever's going to happen. And it's not that I wasn't, because I was super emotional about it because I knew what the ramifications were. Yeah, right. And I was like, you know what? it's going to be what it is. I can't control that. I can only control my response and what I do. So
Yeah.
I told her, thanks, but that's going to be a no from me. And then I got crappy roles for the rest of high school. I played Sister No Name in, I was like one of the nuns in Sound of Music. So on my t-shirt, I just put Sister No Name because I didn't have a name.
Yeah.
I think I played a bear in Peter Pan. It might not have been a bear, but it feels like it was a bear.
Yeah.
There was some crappy poem thing we did called Wiley and the Hairy Man, and I was in that. And then there was a monologue I got one time, and then she would just scream in my face that she didn't believe me. I'm like, this is not helping my acting. So
was she that way towards? Was she generally?
No. She had her favorites. She had people who like their parents were like
donors
really involved with the thing. No, but their parents were like would come and that's fine. Like I'm not denigrating any of those people because all those people were great, and I was friends with all of them. That being said, it felt very much to me like there was a hierarchy of people that she catered to and people that she didn't, and I wasn't on that list, and that's fine. I didn't need that. What was great was that wasn't the only thing I did when I was in high school. Right. So like we had, like, I very clearly remember there was a huge there was a huge rally that we did at school, and it was all about like not being on drugs and that kind of stuff. And I was chosen to host that. So it was this huge thing that like everybody in the school came to, and it was a huge event. And I remember I was like, I hosted that. I introduced all the people, yada, yada. And that was one of those things that that so many people were talking about. And they're like, oh, she's so great, blah, 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 yada. So I was like, okay, so it may not always be acting, but there are other things that I can do that are on the same track. You know what I mean? And I don't even know that I consciously knew that then, but that was sort of
built in.
As I look back on that, I go, oh, okay, so that's a pivot. That's like, oh, okay, this person does what do they say? You can get up from the table when love is no longer being served. So like, I was like, oh, that person doesn't get who I am and what I do, but this person does. So let me go sit at this table and see what they've got going on. So it was always and that sort of goes to like how Maria Bamford says, I just want my fans to carry me off stage and scream my name. I was like, see, there are always going to be people who get what you do, and it's not everybody. Everybody's not going to get what you do. So I did. So that was sort of the high school drama, and I was in like choir and all that stuff. So there were other outlets for me to have the opportunity to perform. Yeah. And then once I got out of high school and I took some time off from school before I went to college, and I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go to school. And I had a friend who had done this program called Up With People.
Oh, yeah.
And she told me all about it and how great it was. And she traveled all over the world, and she was gone for a year. And I was like, oh, that sounds like something fun that I could do. Now, what I didn't remember is that my mother told me when I was 7 years old, we were watching the Tournament of Roses parade, like you do on New Year's Day. Yeah. And Up With People happened to be performing that year in the Tournament of Roses parade. And I was like, Mom, I want to do that. I don't remember that. My mother says to me that I said that. I don't remember. So, but cut to, I'm now out of high school, been out for a couple of years. A friend is telling me about this thing that she did. And I was like, well, because it's the program is you travel for a year, you do community service in every city you go to, you do a show.
I went to one of those shows.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I was in Syracuse, New York, and you guys have like an album? Like, wasn't there an album of it?
Oh, yeah, there are albums.
Okay.
There are many albums. Like, I feel like every show that came out, there was an album.
Okay, because we had an album of it. And my dad was like, do you want to go? He just like loved any music. So he was like, I just remember he was like, we're going to go to this Up With People thing. And I was like, whatever. And I remember like going to see it. I just remember like we had the album that we bought at the show, and I don't remember much about it other than I was like, I don't understand what this is, but we're going to it. And we had a good time, and everyone was like, they were just like, great singers, but I didn't know anything about the community service thing or how they got chosen or anything. I was just like, yeah, we're going to go see Up With People. And then we had the album in our house, and I used to play it.
And then they interview you. The way that you get in is they interview you after the show. Like if I don't know how they do it now, but when I did it, is if you went to a show and you were interested, they would have different cast members talk to you after the show, and they would talk to you about who you were and blah 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 whatever. And then like there was a whole, I think there was then they give you an application to fill out, and you have to get references and all this stuff because because what ultimately happens is if you get chosen, and it's super selective, which I didn't realize at the time. And you're going to be, whenever you go to a city, you're staying in people's homes with families. So you're staying with host families.
See, I didn't know any of this. So
they have to know that you're going to be trustworthy. They have to know that you're not going to like commit a crime or do something horrible or whatever. So there's like all these things there's all this stuff you have to do. So, and then you have the ability, I think, to get college credit for it. But it costs like, I'm trying to remember. It was between $10,000 and $15,000.
Oh, wow. That they charge. Wait, that you had to pay.
That you have to pay. That you have to
be
pay
in it.
To go.
Okay.
So right. So, I did all the application stuff. I filled out all the paperwork. And then I got in, which I wasn't expecting. And then I think I had like a year from the time that I got in to the time that I was going to raise the money. So I did like different fundraisers and all this stuff, and I didn't. And it was the year before I went was a weird year. Like my parents got divorced. It was a whole thing. So the year leading up to it was a crazy year for me. And then I almost didn't go. And I was like, maybe now it's not the right time. Maybe I should leave later. And my mom was like, no, you should just go. And then I had raised some of the money, but I was like, I don't even have all the money.
Yeah. So how do you pay for it? Like, what did people, okay.
Let me tell you. So
I'm calling this episode up with people.
Right.
I'm like
so I had gotten like all these like people that I knew to I told them what it was. I told them what I was doing. And so many people were so generous and so lovely and donated, and all like people from my church, like all this like amazing things. So I'd raised a lot of the money, not all of it. And my mom's like, I still think you should go. I was like, they're not going to let me go. I don't have all the money. And she was like, well, just go. She's like, you already have the plane ticket. I was like, okay.
But like, you didn't have to be like, they weren't like, you're all like, when you say plane ticket, were they just like, all right, you made it, show up at this airport? Like, how does...
I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So the way it works is that they are like the day, like, so there's a period called staging where you learn the show, learn the songs. That's 5 weeks in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
So I learned all this. So you go there.
So they're like, get to Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah. You're learning the show. You're learning the songs. Okay. You're learning like how to put the set together. You're learning how all of these things work. And so I got there, and there's like a shuttle that just comes all day long and picks people up from the airport for like 3 days as people are arriving.
Wow.
So I remember getting to Colorado, and I'd never been to Colorado before. So like the mountains were insane. It was crazy. And it was in winter, and it was January. And I got there, and then they do all this intake stuff. Like you have to I remember running because I remember I said I was on the fence, so I hadn't gotten my passport. I remember that I literally had to like go get an expedited passport before I left because I didn't have a passport. Yeah. And then and I looked when I think about that passport picture, I'm like, I wouldn't have let me in any country. I looked insane. Because like that day, like I had to go get all this stuff. Like you have to get all the paper. And then when it's expedited, they're like, oh, no. If you're going to expedite it, you have to like go to the passport office and blah, blah, like all this stuff. So I had done all this stuff in like 48 hours and gotten there. And then I got there and they like do your intake and they talk to you. And I was like, this is all the money I have. I don't have all the money. And then they said, okay, we'll talk to you about it tomorrow. And then the next day they were like, oh, we have a sponsor who said that they'll pay the rest of your fee.
Wow.
So and I was like, apparently it was meant to be.
Yeah.
So,
because really, what a racket. Like, I thought you guys, so I went there thinking like, look at these people. They must be like, they get to perform. They're probably making lots of money. And like, I had no idea.
That they got people. There were people who did it for college credit. Like there were people who got college credit for it. But my rationale was, wouldn't it be, I was like, if I can do this thing, if I can go around the world performing all these
I would
places,
do it. Yeah.
And nobody's paying me, then I know that this is what I want to do.
Absolutely.
To be an artist and to be a performer. Then I'm like, then if it's not what I want to do, then I've
cool
spent a
story.
year traveling, and
Yeah.
that's not a horrible thing. You know
Did
what I mean?
they
Yeah.
pay for your meals and stuff?
So like when we stayed in host families, our host families fed us.
Okay.
So every city we went to, we stayed with a host family. And and sometimes you were in, and we called those allocations. So sometimes you were in allocation and it was just you. And sometimes you were in an allocation with 2 or 3 or 4
Okay.
people, depending upon how many people the families had said they would be willing to host while you were there.
Yeah.
So we would go to a family, like they would feed us and they would like make us lunch or whatever. So, and when we would leave that family, they would like give us a lunch to take with us. So all of that stuff was taken care, like food and stuff was most like we obviously brought money and stuff, but like a lot of that stuff was taken care of.
But then so if you think about it that way, you're like, well, assuming you don't have a mortgage to pay for at home, you're like, well, my cost of living is paid for this much money.
Truly.
That's
and
not
that was
that
the
bad.
beauty of it,
Yeah.
is that I was so young. It wasn't like I didn't have an apartment that I had to think about.
Yeah.
I didn't have so I was going, like there was nothing tying me to anything.
I mean,
at that
I
point
would
'cause I was
do
so
it.
young.
I would just
$10K to see the world is a pretty good deal.
It's a bargain.
Yeah.
When you
I
think
just
about it, it's a
didn't
bargain.
know that that's what it was. You know what I mean? Like I just like truly thought that you guys were like superstars that were making lots of money, and I thought it was so cool. You had a record.
And they did like a record for every single show. And then like when we left, there were the way that they did it then was there were 2 sets of casts that left every year. In January, cast D and E, I was cast D, left January, traveled to December. The summer cast left in either June or July, and then they would travel for a year and get back around the same time.
So from the time you found out you were accepted, it was a year until it started.
It was maybe a little less. Maybe I feel like it was something between 9 and 12 months. Like I feel like I may have started the process in like January or February of the year before. Found out, and then they ask you to pick when you want to leave on the application, and I feel like I picked like January of the next year. So if I got in March, April, and I feel like that sounds about right, then I had until the next year to
get it together, get ready to go.
Exactly.
How many people were in your group? So
in my cast, there were 120 of us. Wow. 120 cast members, and they were from all over the world. From China, from Norway, from the Netherlands, from France, from Belgium, from Switzerland, from Bermuda, like all over. And then a lot of people and also all over the United States.
So did you guys, when you were doing your cast, did you guys, I would imagine you would get really close, right? Just traveling.
So this is what's interesting. When you get to staging, and what is another reason that I thought it would be a good thing for me to do? Because when I went, and there were people who, I don't know if this is necessarily true, but I feel like there were people who kind of knew each other when they got there, like people who had like decided to sign up with friends or whatever. And that may not be true, but when I went, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So I was going into the situation completely solo, all by myself. And I think it was one of those things that I was like, I think it's a good idea to put yourself in surroundings where you don't know anyone, and you
were just like, how did you have all these instincts of like, it's just funny.
Because I knew that, because you know how you know yourself, and I always knew that I was good in my group, and I was good like where I was, but I knew that there was a level of discomfort in being in a situation where I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know, you know what I mean? And I was like, I feel like those are the situations that force you to grow the most.
Yeah, but like I felt like I was like, oh, I'm going to go to a restaurant by myself in my 20s. And my friends were like, why would you do that? And I'm like, just to get used to it. But I would never be like, I got to do this whole fucking year so hard by myself.
I think another reason was because I knew that as much as I loved, like I grew up, like I had great parents, and I'm really fortunate to have the friends that I have, and that we've been friends for so long. But I also knew that I wanted to see something beyond where I grew up and what I knew. And I was like, I want to expand my worldview. And I feel like I can do that if I put myself in a completely different place. So that was another, and I always wanted to travel, and I'd always wanted to see the world. And my dad had been in the military and had always talked about having been stationed in Germany and having gone to Switzerland. So that was also something that I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to be able to travel and do that when I'm not so, because, once you get older, you have bills, you have responsibilities, you have all sorts of stuff. And and this was before I'd even gone to college. So I didn't even have college debt to worry about. So I was like, well, let's just do this now and see what happens, see how it all plays out.
Have you always been sort of like, because these are like leadership qualities, like, whoa. So like, have you always sort of been a natural leader type? Like, do people like follow your influence?
This is my thing.
Have you always been a girl boss?
I always say that I'm always like, if we're in a situation and I feel like things are not going the way that I feel that they should go, I have no hesitation at being like, how can we make this so that we're all more successful?
Yeah.
What's happening? I very clearly remember when my niece used to play soccer when she was like 4 years old. And one Saturday I took her mom had to work and she was like, can you take her to get her soccer picture? I was like, yeah, I can take her. So I took her to get her soccer picture. And if I can tell you, I went to this, I think it was either church or high school in Pasadena. And there were just like literally 500 kids in soccer uniforms running everywhere, parents just standing around. And we were supposed to get our soccer picture taken, I think at 10:45 and at 11:15. I was like, oh, we need.
Yeah.
So I go up to the person who had a clipboard and I said, so our soccer team was supposed to take their picture half an hour ago. What do I need to do to expedite this process? Who do I need to talk to?
Wynter.
That soccer picture got taken in 10 minutes and we were on I was like, what can I do to help you to expedite this? And I've always kind of been that person. And I don't want to say that that's always true. I feel like when I was much younger, I wasn't a talker. I wasn't super social. And that sort of all changed when I got to be like 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
When I was like, okay, am I gonna make my own decisions and be my own person, or am I going to continue to let other people speak for me? So, and once I made that decision, like it's all growth. Nobody's great. Nobody's perfect. We're all figuring it out.
Yeah.
So, but I figured out that I needed to be able to do what I needed to be able to live with. And I can't figure out what other people are going to do.
Yeah.
So I just need to do what I'm doing. And if you want to be on this train, great. If you don't, that is also fine.
Yeah.
That's all right. I want to hear more about world traveling, but I want to ask one semi-related back to the theater question. So when you were like, when you made the decision, like, I'm not going to be this character and I know what that's going to mean for the rest of my roles. When you continued to get Bear or Sister No Name, did you like give them all the heart that you did Dolly, or were you just like, I'll give this woman the exact amount of energy she needs from me?
I'm trying to remember. I tend to not be a halfway person.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna say yes to your thing and I'm gonna do it, even if you are not doing what I think you're supposed to do, I don't have any control over that. I can only do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So if I feel like I can't give you 110%, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Just because then I'm irritated that you're wasting my time and that I'm doing it.
Okay.
So once I've made the decision to do it, even if it turns out to be a train wreck or whatever, I'm like, dude, I can only do I can only control what I'm doing.
I'll give you the most beautiful train wreck I can give you.
Right. And I think that's part of the reason that I've been so drawn to stand-up comedy, because there's a lot of group project involved in being an actor. And there's a part of me that is not down with that because I don't know what anybody else is going to do. I only know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So the great thing about comedy is I don't need you to cast me to do comedy. I don't need you to like or approve of what I'm doing as a comedian. I just do what I do, and either you like it or you don't.
Yeah.
And as an actor, you're constantly being given direction and correction. And as a comedian, you just walk up and you say your truth, whatever that is, and people respond to it or they don't.
That's like how I started stand-up too, because I was waiting, so obnoxious. I was waiting for someone to tell me that I was funny enough, and I had like a friend that was doing stand-up, so I was like waiting for him to tell me, like give me permission or like invite me to do it. And we were making sketch videos together, and he'd have like an idea, and I remember I was like, I'm just checking in, like, do you want me to just play my role, or do you want me to help you like co-produce this sketch? Because the jokes you're sending me, they're all right, but they could be better. But if you just want me to do that thing, I will do, like you said, I'll be the best bear ever. But I think it's funnier if the bear does this or whatever. And it created conflict because he didn't want to, like, we were friends too. So like we would be out and people would be like, oh my God, that video you guys made was so funny. And it'd be like a joke that I fought for. Like I'd be like, that needs to be in there. It has to go like this. And then people would be like, you guys are crushing those videos. That one joke was so great. And it created like tension. And then it got to the point where I was like, I have to do stand-up because I can't wait for you. Like, I didn't want to be dependent on someone else to create stuff. So I was like, I have to that's the one thing that I can just do by myself.
Not just that, I think that there's also a level of knowing what your funny barometer is. Like, you know what you think is funny. And I think that whenever you are in any kind of a comedy group, there's a level of democracy that has to be dealt with. Whereas when you're stand up and you think something is funny, you just say it because you know it's funny. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's a level, but if you had told me when I moved to Los Angeles that I would be doing stand up, I would have looked at you like you were a crazy person. I'd have been like, no, I'm a serious actress.
I was gonna say, and Up With People is just singing, right? It's all, there was no acting, right?
There's a show, like there's a show element to it. Like there's a through show that I did. There was acting, there was a through line, there was it was basically a musical is what I was. So there was, and also when I went to college after that, I got my degree in musical theater. So I spent 4 years acting, singing, dancing, all of that stuff. So but I was very clear on, okay, this is what it is to be an actor. And I feel like being an actor put me in a position to be comfortable on stage so I can stand on stage in front of people. And I think stage presence is a huge thing when you're a comedian. So that put me in a good place, but it wasn't anything I ever thought that I would necessarily do. But like, I got my SAG card when I was in Chicago. I got my equity card when I was in Chicago. So then when I moved here, and I was used to doing, when I was in Chicago, I was used to being in 3 to 4 shows a year. So I was on stage if I wasn't in a show, I was rehearsing a show. And that's what I did for years when I was in Chicago. And then when I moved here and people want you to do theater for free, I was like, oh, my free theater years are behind me. So I was like, but what can I do that's going to get me up on stage in front of people on a regular basis? Because I think that is a skill that you need to have as an artist. And for me, so I was like, well, maybe stand up, but I wasn't sure. And then I took through SAG. SAG has an intensive weekend every year, and when you do the weekend intensive, they have all these different classes you can take and all this stuff, and it's like part of your SAG dues. So I took it the first year that I was in LA. And it was either the first or second year I was in LA. I can't remember. And there was a guy there who was teaching a class called Stand Up for the Actor. So I took that class and I thought it was really interesting. And then his name is Jonathan Solomon. Shout out, Jonathan. And he gives a class at Santa Monica College. He gives 2 classes. He gives a Stand Up for the Actor class and he gives a How to Write Funny class. So I feel like I thought about the class for a year before I actually took it. And then I didn't take the Stand Up for the Actor class first. I took the writing class first because I was like, if I can't write, what are we doing? So I took the writing class first. And the writing class was people who were writing a variety of different things. There were people who were writing pilots. There was a woman who was in her 80s who was writing her memoirs. There was a guy who was writing stories about his cat. Like it ran the gamut. I love that class. People writing about all sorts of things. And what they were trying to do is make those things funnier. Yep. So Jonathan taught that class as this is how to punch up your writing, whatever it is. This is how you're going to throw in a setup of like, this is how you throw a joke into a memoir. This is how you throw a joke into a pilot, like all of that stuff. So we learned joke structure. And that's when I first started to like write jokes and like write like, okay, this is joke structure. This is what it is. Let me start to write some jokes and see how they're working. And then after I took that class, then I took the Stand Up for the Actor class. And then he went more into depth about this is what this is a personality comedian, this is a persona comedian, it's like what the different types of comedians were and what the different styles of comedy were. And then the second half of the class he ran like a writer's room, so people would talk about the jokes that they were working on and people would pitch on those jokes. So, and then at the end of the class, you didn't have to do it, but at the end of the class there was a graduation show. So when I went into the class and I knew that I'm like, okay, there's a due date that we're going to have to do. So that's when I started going. I started like the first week I started the class. I want to say the class was 6 or 8 weeks. I started going to open mics because I was like, if I'm going to have to perform this at the end of this class, I need to
be able to say it. Yeah.
I need to practice. So I started going to open mics and I would take my notebook and all the jokes I was working on and read them to the people in the coffee shop.
But in your mind,
sometimes they'd laugh and sometimes they wouldn't. And I was like, well, this is what it is. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah. In your mind, was it just doing that open mic strictly for the class, or did you think, oh, I'm going to keep doing this?
I'm very good at school, so it's like I'm like, if there's an assignment, I'm like, oh, there's an assignment. Yep. I'm going to need to do X, Y, D. At the end of so I knew that at the end of the class there was a show. I knew that I wanted to do the show, and I was like, oh, if I'm going to do this show, that means I need to practice, because how do you get better at anything? You practice. So I started going to open mics every week because I knew that at the end of it, we were going to perform our show, which we ended up doing at the Improv. And this was before the Improv even had that stage. You know, the stage that they have now, that's that smaller stage that they have now. They didn't even have a stage there then. You were just on the floor. They had lights and they put a mic on the floor. Like now they have like a proper stage there. This was when they were first trying that room out as a smaller room. And that's where we did our graduation show.
It's a nice room for a graduation show.
It's a nice room, but I'm just saying, like, there was no platform, there was nothing. You were on the floor and there were lights and there was a microphone.
Yeah. Which at that stage is like, that'll get your stomach in your throat when you know you have to get up there.
So the day of the show, I come from the acting world, so I'm always an hour early for any show. So I got there an hour before the show. I was the first person there. And one of my friends wanted to come, but he was on set because he was working. And he's like, I want to come, but I'm going to get off set. He's like, I don't know when I'm going to get off set, but it's going to be later. I said, okay. And my teacher was like, well, when do you want to go? I'm like, I don't care. He's like, well, you want to go last? I'm like, great. I don't know why I said that. Because then all I did for the whole show was sit in the other room, the bigger room that was empty because it was earlier in the day, and sweat. So much sweat. I was just wet. I sweat and I wrote my jokes in my notebook, like I wrote, because I'd memorized everything.
I used to do that.
And I wrote them longhand because I'm an actor and everything is about lines for me. So I'm writing my jokes in longhand and all I'm thinking is, I'm never going to remember this. I don't know what's happening. Am I going to faint? Could I throw up? That could happen. So I didn't even get to see anybody else's set because all I was doing was sitting in the other room, panicking, sweating, and longhand writing out my jokes to make sure I remembered them. It was insane.
After arriving an hour early.
Yeah. After arriving an hour early, just pouring with sweat. Just pouring with sweat. And I remember I was the last person up and I remember going up and I want to say that I remember that it went well, but I felt like it went well, but I can't remember what happened. Like, I feel like it went well. Like, it went well, because I know, because people told me, and my mother is not a liar. Like, if it hadn't gone well, she'd be like, maybe this is not for you. Like, she's not one of those people who's going to pump you up just to, like, she's not that guy. So she was like, I was very worried. You were very funny. Thanks, Mom. And then it was so funny. My former boss came and she brought her husband and they like made me autograph their programs. And so I was like, okay, that went well. And then and even then I was still not sure that I was going to do stand up, but then I just sort of kept doing it. Like I kept going to open mics, kept doing shows. And then people started to ask me to do shows. And then I started, then I was like, well, maybe I could host, because I would have a lot of anxiety before shows, like worrying about my set, worrying about like all of these things that just sort of made me not as comfortable on stage as I wanted to be, just because I would have so much agita before going up, that I started hosting mostly to distract myself from the fact that I was going to have to do a set. Because if I'm hosting, then I don't have time to worry about my set. If I'm hosting, I have to get everybody's intro. I have to know what order the show is going in. Is someone not here? What are we going to do about that? Are we putting somebody in their place? Like there are
Timing
1,000 other
sets.
things to worry about.
You're
when
producing the
hosting.
show, and you're like a
there you go.
natural producer. So yeah.
So I was like, so if I'm worrying about what's going on the hosting aspect, I don't have time to worry about my set. And that, I think, helped me to be a better comedian because I didn't have all that anxiety going into my set because I had 600 other things to worry about being the host.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to host a small show at a small theater back home, and I like that's it. It's like marching around with my notebooks. I need to know who's where. I need to know you're running late. Okay, but how late and when are you going to be here?
Right.
And taping up my set list in 3 places to answer all the questions. Yeah, and so you're like, oh, I haven't actually thought about my jokes for better or worse.
And I think, but I think that it made me. For me, it just made me less anxious about what I was doing on stage, and I think that made me more able to react in the moment when things went wrong or when things happened that you weren't expecting, and to be able to roll with it. And that helped me tremendously.
Yeah, I have an improv background, which I still love tremendously, and I started doing stand-up because improv was like not making my stomach hurt with fear of failure as much anymore. Like it was just very comfortable. So I was like, I need to do something that makes me uncomfortable. And it was like to me, like stand up like has to be right. Where like in my head, I was like, well, improv like allows you to figure it out as you go. And stand up, these people deserve for me to know what I'm talking about. And so that's like a fun added layer of pressure I put on myself for no real reason until I figured out, hey, if you just be who you are, it'll be fine. So that's been the journey, and which is like the main thing I learned from the other one was like it'll be fine, and
it's all going to work out. Yeah, and then once you figure out that no, we're not curing cancer, nobody's going to die. It's fine. Like I'm like, guess what? We're not curing cancer. Nobody's going to die. It's fine.
No. I remember I was hosting a show, and I was so anxious about hosting it, and it was like a bringer. Like I got hired to host the bringer, so I was like, it was like
you didn't have to bring anybody, or did you?
No. I was getting the only person getting paid. You know what I mean? So and then this guy, and I can't remember who it was, but it was like a bigger comic was in the area, so he was dropping in on this show, and I was hosting it, and I went up and did my set, and then I was so anxious about because if you're a regular show, it's yourself, the feature, the headliner, you're done. Maybe a guest spot. The showcase shows are like the nightmares for me, where it's like 8 different people.
So many people.
People are late. People, whatever. Like all the stuff you're talking about. So I'm like so anxious, and they were like, "We have to add on. This guy's here, so now he's gonna go." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I did my set, and I got off stage, and some guy came up to me, and he was like, "Hey, good job." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And it was the special guy. I realized later. I was like, I can't even look at you right now.
But they know. Like, they've been in it. They know what it's like.
But it was so funny.
Because the thing is that it's so whenever people drop in, and that's what I learned about. And that's one of the things that was helpful about, because I had a show that I hosted regularly at Flappers for at least a year. And I did like 2 different shows that I hosted off and on at Flappers. Like I had 2 mics, and there was an actual show that I did every Tuesday, I think it was now. And, COVID. So, but what was great about that is that so many things happened all the time that you were constantly adjusting.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, there's no, like, you can't be precious about it. You just have to go up there, you have to do your work. And people who are going to love it are going to love it. And people who are not, are not. And Whitney used to come a lot. Whitney Cummings, when she was working on her last album, she came religiously. So she would always be dropping in, and she was always nice. She was always cool. I would always be like, well, how do you want me to introduce you? She's like, oh, just say whatever. And she would come in, and she would work on her 15 or 20 or whatever. And then when you see her special, you see how much of that ended up in her special. And you're like, oh, that's how you work out. You just have to come and work it out in front of people. And I had the same experience with Maria. When Maria was working on Weaknesses, the brand, that happened to be a year that I didn't have like a regular 9 to 5. So when she would be at the clubhouse at like 4:00 in the afternoon working on her material for that special. I got to go see that like 3 times, and I got to open for her once and close for her once. And it was amazing to watch her do the work and then to see what ultimately it ended up being.
Yeah.
It was so instructional as far as this is how you put together a special. And and what you have to do, you just have to go do it in front of people. You just have to go continue to do it in front of people and see what works and see what doesn't.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Do you have, I'm going to fast forward us back to travel stories. Do you have a standout city or story or experience where you're like, when I think of my time with these people, this story is what comes up?
It's funny because we were gone for a year.
Yeah.
So when you think back to how 365 days of whatever, like there's so many things that happen. There's so many things. There's so many stories. There's so much stuff.
Yeah.
But I always think back to the day that I got lost in Germany. It was my first day in a foreign country. And I was lost for 8 hours.
Oh God.
And so I had gone to Germany because, so the way that worked is that every cast member, if you wanted, you would prep a city for the cast to come into. So you would go to that city 6 weeks before and you would like do promotion and you would find host families and you'd be on radio shows.
Wait, so how
and,
many shows?
Newspaper interviews, all that stuff to get the city ready for when Up With People ultimately got there.
How many shows were you guys doing?
How many did we do by the end of the year?
Like, was there a show a week or something?
No. So like it would depend on the city. Like there were some cities we did, maybe if we were really popular in a particular city, maybe we were there for 5 days and we did a show for 3 or 4 of those days.
Okay.
Or if we were in some cities, we were in literally, we came in one day, we did a show the next day and we were out the following day. But then, it would just depend on the city.
So like the people that didn't prep that city, what were they doing? Were they just home?
Oh, so like if I was so there was always somebody in a city prepping the next city. So there were always 1 or 2 cast members who weren't there. They were prepping the next city. So like when we were in staging in January, there were some people that in like the 4th week of staging, they left to prep our first city. Because we were going to that. So then by the time we got to our first city, there were 2 cast members. They were they were like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks out. Usually it was 5 or 6 weeks out. So before we went to Germany, I want to say the cast was we were somewhere on the East Coast. I think we were in Hyannis. And I never got to go to Hyannis because we flew. Like when the cast was going to Hyannis, me and another cast member we had to drive to Buffalo because we were flying out of Buffalo to go to Germany. So we got to see Niagara Falls right before we left. They're like, "You want to swing by and see the falls before we go to the airport?" We're like, "Yeah." So we went and saw Niagara Falls for like 20 minutes, and then we went to the airport. So we went to, I went to, before the rest of the cast went, me and this other cast member went to Germany to prep the first city. Was it the first city? I think it was to prep the first European city for the cast. So when we left, my friend's parents had friends in Germany. So I was supposed to be going to a city called Gladbeck. So when we got there, her parents' friends met us. They were very nice. They said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Gladbeck." They said, "Mönchengladbach." And I said, "Sure."
Oh, no.
See, I was like, and what did I learn? Don't let anybody tell you where you're going if you know. So they said Mönchengladbach. I'd never been to Germany. I took Spanish in high school. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So they put me on a train to Mönchengladbach. I got to Mönchengladbach. There were supposed to be people there waiting for me. They were not because I was in the wrong city.
Oh, my God.
So I had phone numbers of people I should call. But in Germany, they had telephone cards. Like you didn't put money in a phone. There was like a card you put in the phone. Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't have a phone card. So the first thing I did, because I was young, was start crying. Yep. And then I was like, no, get it together. Crying is not going to get you where you need to go. So I got get it together, Wynter.
I wish I had you with me my whole life, Wynter.
I was like, get it together. Like I literally started crying. I was like, get it together, Wynter. Get it together. Yeah. That's not going to get you where you need to go. So and I didn't speak German. My first took Spanish in high school. If I had known my first foreign country was going to be Germany, I'd have made a different choice. So I start walking up to random people going telephone card. People gave me their telephone cards and let me use it.
Wow.
I called the number I was supposed to call. They're like, we're waiting for you. Where are you? I'm like, I'm in Mönchengladbach. They're like, that's not the right place. I'm like, I know. So then I had to take a train from Mönchengladbach. Now they've given us money like for all of this, for travel, for blah, blah, blah. So then I have to take a train from Mönchengladbach back to, where were we? I want to say that we landed in Dusseldorf. So I had to take a train back to Dusseldorf and then get on the right train.
Oh my God.
To Gladbach. So I take the train, but I'm lost all day.
Yeah.
I take the train back. And then when I get back, I buy the train ticket and I am literally, how far am I? I'm on track 1. The train leaves in 5 minutes. I have 3 of the biggest bags you've ever seen. And all I'm thinking is, I have to make it to track 8. I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make it. And then this random guy is like, where are you going? I was like, I have to go to track 8. I was like, I have to be at track 9.
At that point, are you like, whatever?
I was like, I'm supposed to be. He's like, we'll make it. He took 2 of my huge bags, threw them on his back. We ran. We were.
German people are really getting an A+ in this story.
We were doing the most.
Yeah.
I was literally doing a track run with my 1 bag. He had my 2 bags. We are hauling. We make it all the way to track 9. I get on the train. He throws my bags on the train after me. He's like, welcome to Germany. So he was the hero of that story.
Yeah.
Cut to, I get to almost where I'm supposed to be. I get off at the wrong stop.
No.
I get off at the stop before I'm supposed to get off.
No.
I get back on the train.
Yeah.
I go to the next stop. I get off. I have started taking trains literally at 8:00 in the morning. It is now getting dark. Like it is dusk.
Oh my God.
It is easily 7 o'clock at night. And I get off the train and I have my 3 huge bags and what looks like 1,000 stairs are in front of me that I have to climb to get to where like people have parked. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Yeah. I mean, it just looked like the stairs went on forever. And I look up and I went, okay, throw my bags on. And then one of and I hadn't met her yet. One of our people who worked in PR at Up With People comes running down the stairs. She gets to the platform. She's like, are you Wynter? And I literally burst into tears.
Oh.
So that was my first day in a foreign country. My first day. That was
my
day
God.
1.
That's a good initiation.
Yeah, and at least people were nice.
Right. And the thing is that once you've been through something that hard, you're like, oh, nothing's hard after that.
Like suddenly I'm fluent in German after today.
Right. Exactly. And that's another thing is that we did all these interviews in German.
Wow.
And so what I would do, because I didn't speak German, I would write down what I wanted to say in English and I would make my PR person write it for me phonetically in German so I could say it and sound like she would write it phonetically. Like if I was German, this is how you would say it. And I would just read it. And mostly it was like, I don't really speak German. She had to write this down for me. I hope my German's not too bad. Like that was mostly what I did.
Yeah.
And then I would be so like the first 2 weeks, I would get home to my host family and I was so tired because I had listened to people speak German all day and I didn't understand it. I would immediately have to take a nap. I was like, I have to go to lie down. People talk to me in German all day and I don't understand what anyone is saying. I feel like the 3rd week was the week I started to be able to sort of pick out words and stuff.
That's so wild.
That's an incredible story.
I just can't believe I got to meet an Up With People hero. Like,
you know what's funny is that I don't know if you guys know Blair Postman, but she's a comedian. She's on the East Coast. She does a 15-minute bit about Super Bowl halftime shows, and I didn't realize how many Up With People had done between the 60s and like the 80s. They did a lot.
Wow.
They did it. There was a time that they were doing it almost every year. It was insane. It was so funny. It's such a great bit. Like there's a huge board that she shows pictures. It's insane. Yeah. It's such a great joke. It's phenomenal.
That's so great.
And when she found out that I was in Up With People, she's like, oh my God, you have to be on my podcast. I'm like, of course I'll be on your podcast.
Yeah, I just like didn't think those people were real. Like I knew you guys were out there, but I just like wouldn't I don't know. I just remember my dad took me there. I thought it was so cool. I thought the people in it were so cool. Had no idea how they got there, where they went. Just like
Glenn Close was also in it.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Glenn Close is in Up With People.
That's crazy.
So Katie's dreams came true today.
Yeah. We're calling this episode Up With People. Yeah. Up With Wynter.
Up With Wynter. Wynter, can you tell the folks where they can find you online?
Okay, so you can find me at Wynter Spears on Instagram and Twitter, and also on Facebook. It's just Wynter Spears, my name. Wynter, Wynter, and then Spears like Brittany.
Perfect. And we have all that, and we'll plug it in the show notes. We won't have this out by the 16th, but you're doing what I think is the coolest project I've heard of in a long time, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about it so people can know.
Sure. So there's a show called Your Late Night Show Tonight, and they pick a different comedian every month, and they do a late night show based around that person. So I'm one of the writers for the Jackie Cation episode, which I'm so excited about. And it's been really, really fun and so great to be part of a writer's room and to pitch jokes and all that stuff. It's been really, really amazing. I can't wait for it to come out. It's the show's going to be on April 16th at 9 p.m. Pacific. Now, I know this show is probably going to air after that, but I feel like it lives on the internet, so you should still be able to see
We'll find a way to look it up afterwards, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Put the link
I just think that is the coolest, that it's a rotating host, that the host picks their writer's room, right?
Right. So I was very honored to be picked by Jackie because I'm such a fan, and I think she's so funny. And it's been a really interesting experience to write in someone else's voice.
Yeah.
Because I was like, do I have the ability to write in someone else's voice? Because the jokes that I'm always writing, I'm writing them for me.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that because I've been like listening to the Dork Forest and listening to the Jackie and Laurie show and following her comedy, I know what she likes to talk about. So so it's something I thought would be particularly difficult. Really hasn't been as hard as I thought it would be. And it's been really fun to write with other comedians and write with other people and to see like how their brains work and what they think is funny and to sort of help them take jokes to the next level. And they help you take your jokes to the next level.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So like that's been really, really fun. That's been really cool.
Cool. So
awesome.
We'll find a way for y'all to watch and listen to that after the air date. But in the meantime, follow Wynter. Look her up on Zoom shows, right?
Yes, I'm doing a lot of Zoom shows. I'm not fully vaccinated yet, so that is what I will be doing until I am, and even after that. I'm like,
these variants are not cool. So
it's an interesting time. It is an interesting time.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Follow Wynter. Follow, subscribe, all the Pinky Promise things that we ask every week.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and do that. And
thank you both so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. This was so fun. I finally get to meet one of my heroes.
Yeah. Listen to an Up With Voices Spotify playlist. It'll be great. Up With People. It'll be great. And that's it for us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.